So I'm going to go over to Hyper-V, and I'm going to boot up DC1. Guys, if you have issues with the NAT, we can fix that later, but we don't need those right away. So we're going to have multiple domains. So we're going to have something called a forest now. This is a new concept. In it, we're going to have a domain called contoso.com. When I create that first domain, I'm going to create a new forest, a new tree, and a new domain, all at the same time. And it's the root domain. It's going to have it's going to have two special groups that no other domain will have. The enterprise admin group, if you're part of that group, which that domain admin is, they can do anything to any domain in any part of the forest. Then the schema admin group. A schema is a definition of an object. If you look at a user object, that user object will have certain attributes. An email field, an address field, a manager field, all these things. Those are defined by the schema. It doesn't define a particular object, it defines what makes up an object. And if you mess up your schema, you could potentially destroy your whole forest. When you make a change to the schema, it's only one way. You can't undo it later. So if you add a field to your an object or create a new object, there's no way to delete that unless you rebuild the entire forest. So this is going to be a new forest, a new tree, and a new domain. A forest holds trees. A tree holds domains. A domain holds user and computer objects and some other objects. So when I said this was a new tree, because any child domain under that will be part of that tree. So here's a child domain that is part of this existing tree because the parent domain is included in the child domain. So that's a new tree. There's automatically a trust relationship between these two domains. So as soon as I create it, users from this domain can sign into computers from this domain and vice versa and access different resources. Then I can start something called a new tree. This is a new tree when I first create the domain. Now, okay, no, I'm trying to see how Microsoft has two fake domains. I can't remember what the other one is. Data.com. This is a new child domain too. What makes this child domain different than this child domain? It doesn't include the parent name. So this is the beginning of a new tree. Under this, I could have another child domain. I keep screwing up this thing. So here I created a new child domain in an existing tree. Here I created a new child domain and created a new tree at the same time, because the parent name is not included in the child domain. So a tree is a contiguous namespace, meaning every time you add a new child domain, that child domain will have the parent domain included in it. So I could have underneath that a new domain called sales.child.contoso.com. This is just a child domain because the tree is not new, because the parent name is included in the child domain. I could have another child domain coming off of this called dev.contoso. So these would be sibling domains. If the parent name isn't included, it's a new tree. If the parent name is included, it's just a new child domain in an existing tree. Now keep in mind that this domain might have 30 DCs. This domain might have a bunch of DCs. Don't confuse a domain with a domain controller. A domain is something tangible. A domain controller is something tangible. A domain is something you can't touch. It's just a container. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new forest, a new tree, and a new domain. So sign into your DC1. I'm going to pull up D2L. And I'm going to explain the subnetting later. But right now, we're just working on this side. So this is going to be 172.16.2.3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Those are the IPs that I'm going to go with. Our subnet mask is not /16, so we're going to go with /21. So we're going to put in 172.16.0.2, 255, 255, /21 is what? 248. Because this is the first domain controller, it's going to be 10, 13, 25, and 27 for the upstream DNS servers. Click OK, and let's change the computer name. This way, you're making recipe books, and if they don't work, you've tried. They don't work. Just try to look at the machine. You know how to configure an IP address. You should know that. You CS01 DC1. Your station number DC1. I'm 1. Adam's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, she's 25, 26, 27. Guys, click OK, allow it to reboot.
You're 26. You're 26.
No.
26, 27.
Right. This is 26, that's 27, this is 25. Go ahead and reboot your DC.
I want to add to the domain.
No, we don't have a domain added to it, we have to create it. I'm gonna click reboot. Are you on your real machine or the virtual machine? Oh, okay. You're just doing it the new way I don't use. I'm going to sign in. And install Active Directory domain services. Guys, I'm going to do it graphically so I can explain all the different sections. Because this is the first time really that I'm explaining the domain. Go manage, add roles and features. Go all the way down and install Active Directory domain services. When you get to the last thing, reboot. The reboot won't occur until after I promote it. You want to click this link. If you close this box, go to the notification area, and click the link to launch that. And we have three options. I'm going to start, even if you're not here yet, I'm not going to click anything. But add a domain controller to an existing domain. So if Contoso already existed, I can add in more domain controllers for fault tolerance. All that's going to do is handle authentication, everything that a domain controller does. If one goes down, I'll have an extra. You normally want at least 2 DCs per domain, minimum. And there are special sizing tools that you can go find on the internet saying if you have this many users with this many objects, these are the number of domains that you need. So, the domain already has to exist. And this one, we're going to create a new domain in an existing forest. So someone's already created this forest here. So there's a new forest in an existing tree already. So what do we want to do? Create a new child domain, meaning that the child domain will include the parent's name, or a new tree domain. And in that case, the parent name doesn't exist. So it's a new contiguous namespace. What's a forest hold? Trees. What's a tree hold? Domain. What's the domain hold? Domain controllers. So kind of look at it that way. What we're going to do right now is create a new forest. And that's going to be the root domain. So by creating a new forest, it's going to create a new forest, a new tree, and a new domain, and a new domain controller. It's going to check to verify the domain doesn't exist. Guys, this is interesting. 2019 servers don't have a 2019 server functionality role. So, guys, if I choose a force functionality level of 2016 servers, that means all my domain controllers in my entire force are 2016. If I say 2012 R2, that means all my domain controllers in my force are either 2016 or 2012 R2. It's that or better. Every time they release a new version of Windows, they'll add new functionality. But if you have some old domain controllers, you might not be able to take advantage of that functionality until they're all upgraded. So you might have to, if you have some old domain controllers, you might have to go back with a different functionality level. So if my force can never be, my domain level can never be lower than my force. So if your force is 2012, then your domain will be that way as well. So basically, I might have one domain in my entire force, let's say this domain right here, where they're all 2016. But in my entire forest, I might have a couple 2012s here, maybe one 2008 here. So I can have one domain be all 2016, but other domains in the forest might not meet that spec. So you know, you have to know what domain you're doing, what kind of machines you currently have in your existing forest. Now, keep in mind this is only for DCs. If I have a 2008 file server, that has no effect on this. This is really pointing to DCs, no other machine. Those are called member servers. Now, if I had a third-party DNS server handling my DNS, I could uncheck that and create the DNS zone there. But in this case, we don't. Now, guys, this is something you haven't seen before. It's going to cause you a lot of headaches. It's called the global catalog. That's going to be the mechanism that I'm going to use to search for other objects in other domains, those global catalog. You need at least one per site. But the global catalog, and when we talk about server roles, are going to, certain server roles can't be on the same machine as global catalog because your global catalog will cease to function properly. So not every machine will be a global catalog. Microsoft has a rule. You've got to keep the global catalog off the infrastructure master. Or you put global catalogs on all the DCs. Global catalogs will hold, let's say I have a site, just thinking North Campus and Central Campus. I'm only thinking about Central Campus. Let's just say I have a global catalog on DC1 and a global catalog on DC2 and another global catalog on DC3. No, I'll do this. These two are part of the parent domain. This is part of the child. This global catalog is going to know about all objects and all attributes for all objects for the parent domain. But it's also going to know about all objects in most attributes for child. So if I had a bunch of global catalog servers in my network, they need to replicate to one another. So if you have too many global catalogs, what you're doing is causing a replication nightmare. I don't want to have to deal with replication between DCs within a domain and global catalog servers within a forest. So if you have too many global catalog servers, it just makes everything take longer to happen. Yes, you can put a global catalog server on every DC. I don't recommend it because all you're doing is just creating unnecessarily replication traffic. Because remember, this is going to know about all objects throughout the forest. So if one domain controller has 1 million objects and another domain has 500,000, that global catalog is going to be holding 1.5 million objects. It can get overwhelming. And you have to also be conscious of different types of groups, which we'll get into later. So when the first machine, a new forest, new tree, new child, first DC, you can't unselect global catalog. But in future ones you can. But we need to be conscious where we put those global catalogs. So right now I'm going to leave it on this machine, can't take it off, and I'm going to have you do something different for the second DC. Now, when I promote this to a DC, I no longer have local accounts. On DCs, they're the only machines that don't have local accounts as part of a domain. So what happens when that Active Directory database gets corrupted and I can't sign in? Well, I need one password that allows me to get in to fix Active Directory. Every year they change the name of it. Currently it's called Directory Services Restore Mode password. And we're just going to use our standard password. But this has nothing to do with the admin password. If I change the admin password, this doesn't change. If I wanted to change this password, I have to use this command, ntdsutil. That command is used to reset the Active Directory password amongst other things. Now, when I set this up, who did I point to as a DNS client? My two ISPs DNS server. It tried to contact those DNS servers and try to create Contoso.com there. It didn't have a user account name and password, so it was denied. So we want to see that denial because it's going to then automatically create DNS, install DNS and set up DNS here. Guys, I'm going to talk about more about this when I go to the other DCs. So on the first DC, you want to see this denial. Our net buyer's name. Now we have three important folders. If you click right here, Microsoft, and incidentally these are very good help screens. If you want to go through and you have some time, you're studying for the certification, read these. We have three important folders. They recommend that they not all be on the same physical partition. I never known anyone who didn't do it that way, but the recommendation, especially when taking the test, is there are different partitions. Our database folder is the Active Directory database. If I take it from one machine and drop it into another machine, into one DC to another DC, it should work instantly fine. So that's where all domain controllers will have an Active Directory database. When I replicate from one DC to another, that's what it does. It replicates the database. But because of that replication, they don't want admins writing directly to the database because it might be in the middle of replicating. So what you do is when you make a change like add a user account, reset a password, and things like that, you do it here in the transaction logs. So every time you make a change to Active Directory, it does it through the transaction logs, and at that point, when it's safe to do so, it's going to update the database. Once it updates the database, it will then replicate it to another DC. If this database gets corrupted, I can go grab a database from another machine, copy it here, and then anything sitting in my log files will then be updated to that new copy of the database. So this is where we make changes, not this. The system updates the database, we update the log files. The last is the Sysvol Folder. That is a place that's a network share. And whenever your clients boot up off the network in the part of the domain, they will automatically go to this location. It's automatically, they know what the location is, and will download all the new policies that are there for that machine. If I go to one DC and I make a change to a group policy, it's going to make it locally on that local Sysvol folder. And it will automatically replicate the changes to all Sysvol folders across the board. It's not a normal network share with normal network replication. If I right click and I copy that folder and I paste it on my desktop, from that point on, that's part of the replication cycle. And you can never delete it. Don't mess with the Sysvol folder. It's shared under two different names. For the old Windows NT, it's called NetLogin. So it's shared under two names. For the 2000 and later, it's called Sysvol. Does the same thing. The old NT40 people go to NetLogin to download the policies. The 2000 and later people will go to the Sysvol to download the policies. Again, it's not a normal network share, it's called a junction point. Whenever all those Sysvol folders are all linked together, you make a change to one, it replicates them to all other locations. If you copy a Sysvol folder, it automatically adds it to the replication cycle. So if you copy it onto your Windows 10 box, you can never take that Windows 10 box down. The only way to get rid of it is to manually start hacking away at your Active Directory database. And it's a pain to get rid of. Read this, it's very good.
Real quick,
Yep.
on the, I didn't see that, the DNS options, are we creating or we're not creating DNS delegation?
I'm going to talk about this later. You can't select that even if you wanted to.
Okay.
You don't have the authority to do it.
Correct.
Even if you did, it doesn't work half the time. I'm going to talk about that when I get to another DC where we do actually have authority. So, guys, here's the review. It's going to check to verify that this computer meets the needs.
So if those 3 folders, right, you said that they have to be on separate partitions, so when he replicates, if you
But no
select
one
your
ever
reference-
does that.
I'm saying, but if it happens, would he create partitions on the replication computer? How does it work?
No, you have to manually create the partitions before you get to that point.
Okay.
Create 3 different partitions, and then you move in that screen to them to the various partitions.
Okay.
So it's not going to create any partitions. You should have it done ahead of time. So, guys, I'm going to click install. Let it do its thing. Now, while that's installing, we're going to jump over to DC2 and start configuring the IP settings. So, boot up DC2. Going to 0.3 is the IP address. 172.16.0.3, 21 bits on the mask. What's my gateway? Okay, I have two sets of DNS servers. I have the two public. They are ISP. And I have the first one I just created. On the first DC, I pointed here. Now in the second one, who do I point to? Why do I point to him and not here? This one knows about Contoso.com. This has no clue who Contoso.com is. So if I'm going to be a second domain controller for Contoso.com, I need to be able to query DNS and find out who the first domain controller is. So I need to point, after I create Contoso.com, all the machines should point to a machine that knows about Contoso.com. And that's only this one so far. So our DNS, .0.2. So I'm going to click OK. Change my computer name.
The alternate DNS server, you don't put anything in?
I'm sorry?
The alternate DNS server, you don't put anything in?
Right. Because as of now, we don't have one. Once we go through the DC promotion, it will add itself as the alternate. No, it's going to add itself as the primary, and then the alternate will be DC 1. Because it's going to replicate the data over. I'll show you. So guys, we're going to install Active Directory domain services, then start our break while it's installing. You don't join DCs to the domain. You promote them. You don't join them to the domain. So if you do manually join a DC to the domain, when you promote it, it's going to, you're adding an extra reboot, because what it's going to do is unjoin it, then reboot, then promote. So it just takes longer.
It's taking really, really long.
Yeah, just go with your first break. This will take a few minutes.
Yeah, it still gets me this script starting Red Hat server error. I have no idea what's coming after.
I don't either. I'm working.
Okay, so
the admin for that. I got on, I tried to connect, I can't start anything.
Okay.
None of my machines across the board are starting.
All right, because, you know,
I know the midterm.
I hate losing time on that.
You know, and I did too. I texted him, I said, whatever you did, because he was working on it. I had another issue that I resolved where you couldn't even pull up the page.
Yeah, I saw that actually.
Okay, yeah, so now, whatever he did, he needs to go back. He can't make changes like that to production system in the middle of the semester. Literally, the middle of the semester at midterms. There's nothing I can do. I mean, I'm at a loss. I don't know what the problem is out there.
Yeah, because I tried to sign in one day to keep working on it and said, you are not allowed to access this. I was wondering, oh, okay, maybe it's down for maintenance, but then it comes back up and I get this problem.
Well, I haven't fixed that problem, and then I never actually tested it to see if I could boot a machine. I just assumed there was just one issue. But it's,
It's like they say 4, so it's a cat. You know, but 3 is weird. 3 is like 3. That's not based on this spec. It's not going to run out. Starting with that, it wasn't the maximum was 60. It's really, that's cool. This thing, 70 is when you have to worry about it. Cutoff is 90. And it won't turn off until 1 o'clock. So, throttle, and then there's throttle is 90. And then cutoff is 1 o'clock. But this was like after I was kind of doing it several miles. Those are the next temperature that we I mean, chilling is 47. That's the highest it got. This is a screenshot. No, the G2 is hot. Yeah, I don't know. GTX is 1060.
I'm going to pause the video. Now I'm going to DC2, click on the promote this server to a domain controller. So I'm going to make this a second domain controller in this domain. I want to say backup, the second domain controller. So if one goes down, the other one can handle the authentication load, passing out policies, everything like that. I'm going to do contoso.com. Guys, if you just use Contoso, it's not going to use DNS. It's just going to do a broadcast and try to find Contoso. If they're in a different subnet, it might not work. So by using contoso.com, it forces it to use DNS.
I think I already added it to the domain. Is that fine?
Yeah, it's fine in this scenario because it's all in one subnet. Put in your domain admin. Guys, now keep in mind, I'm trying to go to this domain, and right now I only have one domain controller, and add a new object, a new domain controller object. So I have to supply the domain admin rights. On this one, I'm going to unselect global catalog. If I need to find out information about another domain, I'm going to talk to the global catalog. I already have one on this site, so I don't need to create a second one. All I'm doing is generating too much traffic between these two DCs. There's something else I have to do, and I'll explain later. Again, this is not my domain admin password. This is the Active Directory restore password, and if I set it here, it doesn't mean it's going to change on the other DC. Each DC has their own Active Directory restore password. If I went to a new company and the old domain admin isn't there, I would reset this while it's up and running. Reset your restore password while the machine is running. Don't worry about this delegation. I'll explain this when we get to the next machine. Now, I need to copy everything over from the first DC to the second. If this was on some slow WAN link out in some satellite office, it might drop out my bill over the WAN link. So what I could do is back up DC1, bring that back up over here, and say install for media. So it'll copy everything over from the backup, and then once it's up and running, it'll replicate everything since the backup. Save yourself some bandwidth. Miami-Dade schools. Has anyone ever gone to who went to Miami-Dade public school? That is the biggest Microsoft domain in the world. They have more objects than any other. That is Microsoft's poster child. When they promote a DC and they click install, they walk away for a couple weeks. That's how long it takes. So this could take a while. So especially if you're on a slow link. So you might want to grab a backup and do that. Right now, we don't have a lot of objects. We're going to replicate from any DC that it finds. Incidentally, there's only one so far. So I'm going to copy everything over from essentially DC1. My 3 folders, review, and this doesn't take as long. Click install. Guys, and then I want you to boot up DC5. Start DC5. I'm going to go to DC1 and look what we've done. While 5 is booting up and while 2 is promoting, I'm going to go to local server on DC1. Go to the network.
Oh, you just got it. Okay. Just making sure I didn't press the wrong button.
Who did I point to for DNS initially? Right. So what it did, it pulled this information out. Listen, DC1 has 2 things running. well, it has more, but a DNS server and a DNS client. What's the purpose of the server? To resolve names, IPs. What's the purpose of the client? To ask for a server to resolve a name to an IP. If this DNS client, and here's how we configure the DNS client. So if I told my DNS client, go to these two machines and give me the IP for this server, will these two DNS servers know about it? No. So what I need to do is tell my client on this machine to point to the server on the same machine. So if I need to resolve this name to an IP, the client on this machine will talk to the server on this machine and give me the answer. Otherwise, it won't ever find out its own name. It won't be able to resolve its own name. So I need to point the client to the server. So now where does these come into play? So I'm going to click OK. Go to Tools, DNS Server. Highlight your server and go to Forwarders. So if I ask my client to resolve this to an IP, if my client asks my server, it's going to be able to give me an answer. Because I have a zone called Contoso.com. Inside that I have a record for CS01 DC1. But what happens if I ask if my client wants to resolve www.google.com? I'm going to point to my server. Is my server going to be able to give me an answer? No. So it needs to send that out as a forward to there. So basically all I'm doing is adding Contoso.com to the namespace chain. These machines know about all the public names. This machine knows about Contoso. So if I send any request to this server for Contoso.com, it's going to give me an answer. For any other names, it's going to go out, talk to these servers, and get an answer for me. Recursive. It's a recursive lookup. What if I did this? What if I sent in this name? CS-1, and I skipped a 0, or messed it up and did this, something like this, and messed up the name. What will happen in this case? We're at a typo and I messed up the name. If this client talks to this DNS server, will be able to give me an answer. It will. Just because it's an answer you don't like doesn't mean it's not an answer. It's saying it's not resolvable. It's not going to go and send that out to here because it's the start of authority for Contoso.com. If it doesn't know the answer, no one will. So the DNS client will go here to this server. This server is going to give me an answer saying it's not resolvable. And at that point, that's where it ends. It doesn't go any further. For this one, my client will go to my DNS server. My DNS server will be able to give me the IP back. For this one, my client will go to my server. My server doesn't handle Google.com. It will go out, get an answer, and bring it back, cache it, and give it to the answer to the client. So by putting in these initially, it saves us a step. That means we don't have to go and manually add the forwarders because it'll do it for us automatically. These are the people I talk to if I don't know the answer. What happens if these two machines are down? if I can't reach my forwarders, and then we'll talk to a root server. And if we go here, it says if you can't get these, use the roots. Okay, let's go into
Brian,
yeah.
the diagram is compared to the actual. I mean, sorry, on the diagram is showed DC3 and on the Hyper-V is 5.
Okay, just keep in mind that is it just say DC3?
Yeah, I erased it here.
Okay, you don't have to erase it there. Okay, guys, let me look at this real quick. Let me show you something, Adam. If you click here and bring it in full screen, guys, that's wrong. This should be 3, 4. I'll fix it, but you can click Edit. And press F2, and that should be 4. No, this should be 5, and this should be 6. I did this intentionally to see who's paying attention. I'll fix this. But look, guys, you can make changes here. You can also grab to text, add wherever you want to this. You know, you want to put IP settings in there. You can make your own diagrams, whatever you want. I realize that I don't need to include the XML that it's embedded in the HTML. So you just go to full screen, hover over it, click the edit button. You want to save it as a PDF? Once you're done, click here, print it to a PDF. Okay, so I'm going to go back to DC2. Everything looks good. I'm going to go to local server, go to the network settings, why does it put the loop back there? It's a DNS server now. So basically, DC2, the client, will point to who? This machine first, and second, my server on my same machine. So if this DNS server is down, I also am a DNS server and I'll get the answer for myself. I could flip these and it would have no difference. So as a DNS client, I talk to DC1 first, and then myself second. Okay, so if I wanted to resolve this name, who would I go to as a client? DC1 says it's not resolvable. For this name, who do I go to? DC1. What about this name? So who do I go to first?
DC1. Put it in the cache, right?
I'm going to press cancel. I'm going to go to Tools, DNS, Forwarders. Why send it to DC1 knowing that they don't have the answer? I'm going to go directly to these two root servers. So if someone points to me to get, if I had a client point to me for a name resolution, and they send me www.google.com, if I don't know the answer, and I have the same information as he does, he's not going to know the answer either. So I'm going to send this directly out. How did it get this information? It copied it all from DC1. All this information is all copied off of DC1. So if I make a change here, I'm affecting two machines. If I add a new record right here, it's going to affect DC1 and DC2. because it's the same data that I'm pointing to. Okay. Now here's where it gets confusing. So let's go to a new child domain. So let's go to DC5, sign in.
So DC1 already had an answer, DC2 will have the answer also.
For the cache, no.
No?
No, if this resolved www.google.com and had it in cache, it doesn't copy the. I don't know. I honestly, that's a good question. But look, I'm going to go back to DC2. I can't give you an answer right now because we're not connected to the internet. But if I go to DNS, look at this. If when I click advance, it adds more. I can see my cache. So once we get it up and connected to the internet, we can double check that. Guys, keep in mind now, I have 2 layers of cache. I have a client-side cache. How do I clear client-side cache? I heard someone say it. ipconfig flush DNS. Or disable, re-enable the NIC. If I want to look at my client-side cache, I could do display DNS. And that will show me my cache. I also have server-side cache. So if you're setting everything up and you resolve a name improperly, you might have to delete it at the client level, meaning ipconfig flush DNS, and I can do display DNS. That's where I've cached so far. And then I might have to go to server and clear it here as well. So I'm going to clear it here. I didn't have anything resolved. All I know about is the root servers. I have nothing in cache really. But you have 2 caches now. Client-side cache, you clear with flush DNS. Server-side cache, you highlight your server, clear cache. Okay, so let's go over to child DC5. One 172.16.0.4. Who knows about Contoso? Which servers know about Contoso? 2 and 3. DC1 and DC2 know about Contoso. These 2 servers have no clue anything about Contoso. If you send them a request for a name resolution, they're just going to deny it. Right, because you can't resolve the name Contoso.com. Right, once in the right. But you couldn't get 10. They couldn't use your server, so it couldn't resolve Contoso.com. Not work. Guys, if you can't join a computer to the domain, or you can't promote a computer to a domain controller, 9 times out of 10, your DNS is wrong. Your DNS client settings are wrong. If you say I can't join or I can't promote, that's the first thing I look at. If you can't resolve Condosa.com to an IP, it won't work. So these two machines know about Condosa.com. The forest. They're holding my forest. I'm going to click OK. OK. Change my name. This is CS01DC5.
We're not adding it to the domain.
Do not join domain controllers to a domain. It's just going to take longer by manually unjoining them. You promote DCs, all other machines you join. I'm going to fix my screen resolution. Once the bar stops going, add roles and features. Active Directory domain services. Restart. Did I have my subnet mask is right? Guys, I want to check my subnet mask on this machine. I did. So it's still installing for me. I just got finished. This is going to be DC1 from toaster.com. DC2 from toaster.com. DC3 child.contoso.com. Now in blue, who does this machine point to? Who does my DNS client point to on this machine? Itself. Who does this DNS client point to? One initially, then back to itself. Okay? I need another color. So the blue is the DNS client. As a DNS server, who does this point to if it doesn't know the answer? Who does this point to as a DNS server? You know, the DNS server, if someone comes to me for name resolution, and it's not Contoso.com, I'm just going to go to the server. Same here. For any names other than Contoso.com. So, the DNS client initially, when this DC3 points to where? 1 and 2.
Whichever is available, right?
I'm sorry?
Whichever is available.
Well, it'll start with 2, then
Okay.
it'll start with this one. If it doesn't work, then it'll go to this one. So I'm going to promote this. Does this domain exist? child.contoso.com. Is it a new forest? Okay, so I want to say it's a new domain. Does this child domain name include the parent domain name? So it's a child domain. If it doesn't include the parent, it'll be a new tree. So what's my parent name? Contoso.com. What will my child name be? You don't need to put it'll automatically add it. Why do I have to supply Contoso.com? I mean, Contoso \administrator. I'm creating a new domain. I'm creating a new domain right now. This machine will have, I'm going to just do it this way. It's not true, but a local admin, a domain admin for let's just say a domain admin for Contoso.com. I have a local admin right now, domain admin, and then I have an enterprise. Which level of authority will I use and why? Okay, so you're saying I want to make a change to Contoso.com.
You're adding a child domain.
I'm changing the forest to Contoso.com. So doing something here using this authority won't allow me to create a new domain because I'm not changing that domain. I'm creating a new object in the tree, in the forest. So if I was just adding a new domain controller, yes, I can go with this. But if I'm going to add a whole new domain, I need to be an enterprise admin. So stay right there. I'm going to go over to DC1 to show you something. So I'm going to go to Tools, Active Directory users and computers. This domain has two other groups no other domain controllers, no other domain will have in the forest. I have an enterprise admin and a schema admin. Incidentally, the domain admin account on the root of the forest is both a domain admin and a schema admin. I mean, a domain admin and an enterprise admin. If I was going to make a change that's going to affect the whole forest, I need to be the enterprise admin. Creating a new domain is going to affect the forest. If I was going to create a new user account, create a record in the DNS, add another domain controller, add a new computer account, it's only going to affect that domain, I can be domain admin. If I was going to install software on that machine, I need to be a local admin, but I don't really have local admins anymore once it becomes a domain controller. You have to understand the difference. Once I promote this child domain, it won't have this group or this group. In really secure environments, what they do is they create a root domain and never add users to it. And create a child domain and add the user to the child. So there's no way that those users could gain access to schema admins or enterprise admins group. So it's because of these groups, these are the ones that are going to be used to redefine our forest. So I'm going to go back to my child domain. So we're creating a new child, a new domain controller, in a new domain, in an existing tree, in an existing forest. The forest contoso.com exists. The tree contoso.com exists. Now we're creating a new child domain and a new domain controller for that domain. Yes?
I'm not getting the next option.
Do you have a look right here?
Never mind. Sorry.
Okay.
Was it Contoso or Administrator?
Contoso / administrator. Guys, we're going to have a whole discussion about global catalogs. Oh, I need to do something first. I'm going to have you do something, and it's one of those believe me now type scenario. I'm not going to explain it right now. I want you to go to DC2. Go to Tools, Active Directory Users and Computers. Highlight Contoso. And go to Operation Masters. Highlight the Infrastructure tab. I want to move that from DC1 to DC2. Basically, guys, I cannot have an infrastructure master on a same machine as a global catalog in a multi-domain environment. I'll go over that when we start talking about roles. Maria. Active Directory Users and Computers. Right-click Contoso.com and go to Operation Masters. Highlight the Infrastructure tab. We're going to change it from DC1 to DC2. Just click Change. I'll explain what all those roles do later. We have a total of 5 roles, and I'll go over them. RID, PDC, Infrastructure Master, Domain Naming Master, and Schema Master. Okay, so now it's on 2. So I'm going to go over to DC5 again. Guys, I already have one global catalog server on DC1. I don't need another one on this site. If it got really, really busy, it was a big site, I might add a second one. But ultimately, I'm going to have York Campus or another site that if this global catalog goes down, I can have another one on another site that you use. Okay. Click Next. So this has a DNS zone called contoso.com. And this has a copy of it. Whose rights do I have? Whose rights am I using? Does that account have the ability to create new zones? Yes. So my DNS client points to who? Here. So if I had a server in this domain called www, .child.contoso.com. I had the server in this child domain, joined to the domain. And I have a client who's joined to this domain and points here for DNS. This machine is going to be in charge of its own namespace. Will it be able to resolve that name port? Yes, it's part of that domain. It knows about www. But what if I had a client here? I point to this. What's going to happen? If this client wants to get to www.child.contoso.com, what does it do for any names I don't know about? It would send it out here. So it needs some mechanism to send that portion of the namespace back to that DC3. It's called a delegation. This should work. It said create the delegation, you have the proper authority. But it doesn't work half the time. I don't know why. So we're just going to manually create the delegation. So I'm going to go to DC1. I'm going to go into Tools, DNS. I'm going to highlight Contoso. So I need to tell this DC who's going to handle child.contoso.com. So I'm going to right click, create a new delegation. Back in the 2008 days, this is what we had to do. There was no automatic. So I'm going to delegate a portion of the namespace, the child.contoso.com, to DC5. Oh, sorry. 5. Click Next. Guys, it doesn't exist yet. It's not fully set up, so we've got to manually type everything. I'm going to click Add. The fully qualified name will be CS01 DC5.child.contoso.com. And the IP address is 172.16.0.4. If I had 4 DCs, if I have 4 machines that I've set aside that will be DCs, I would do all 4 right now. If I had 4 DCs that were going to be domain controllers for the child domain, I would add them all right now. When I was promoting those other DCs, it's going to say create delegation. It would actually do it for me, but it just doesn't work right. Maybe 2019 is fixed, I don't know. I'm not taking a chance. It's actually a good lesson to show you how to create a delegation. So, this machine points to here for name resolution. Currently. What do you think it's going to do after I promote it? It's going to point back to itself. We'll wait till we're done. So I'm going to click OK. Next and finish. So if anyone sends any request to child.contoso.com, it won't send it out anymore. It'll send it to DC5. So instead of sending it up, it's going to send it down. Some people do conditional forwarders, and it works the same. It really works the same. Saying for this domain name, send it to this other location, not the default location. Normally, if I don't know the name, send it here. I could do a delegation or a conditional forwarder. On the condition that it's this domain, send it down to here. So let's go back to DC5. This is what it's supposed to do. Click Next. And we're not going to change anything. We're just going to keep clicking Next until we install. So guys, here's another side effect of what just happened. So this machine is going to try to contact this machine to create the DNS child.contoso.com. But the delegation is already in place. So it's going to send it back here and create child.contoso.com on this machine. Because when it tries to contact here and create child.contoso.com, the delegation is already in place. It says, wait, that already exists. Going to send it back here and create it here for us. And automatically configure the child DNS for us. Give me 1 second, Dave. Guys, if you wanted to take a break, did you have a question? What does that say?
Verification of user credential permission field.
Go back. It sounds like you put you typed the password in. Try it again. Remember I said it messes up? That's what it did. See, it created this, it's a subdomain, not a delegation. So that's why it messed up. Did you go ahead before I did?
I don't think so. Why am I?
Yeah, because look, it created this child domain and it screwed up. Let me see what it does dealing with the child. Yeah, you should have had that delegation in place before you did that. Let's see what that happens when that comes up. Let's look up space Contoso.com. That's right. Contoso.com. Tab to child. Contoso.com. Contoso. Backslash. Click S. That doesn't work really, because I don't see any issues. Okay, I'll be back. Guys, if you get what I'm getting on the screen, just close it. Oh, it just went to sleep. Sometimes it doesn't redraw, just close it and restart. Damn. And you go in to child, open up DNS and tell me what you see. One to DC6. Next, so boot that up. Campbell. Boot number tree DC6. Guys, if I look at DNS, and I go to for lookup, I'll see child.dc, child.contoso.com. You see it?
Yep.
Okay, good. So go back to DC1. We're just going to leave it alone because it created a record as a child. Actually, no, I'm going to delete the delegation and go to child.
So what exactly happened?
Well, because you did it in the wrong order. We created the delegation first. And then when it contacted DC1 or 2, it was already there. It wasn't for you. So it created a new child domain, not a delegation, there, and DC here also created a child domain DNS namespace. So you have two namespaces for child, one this one and one for this one. We just deleted this one because it was properly created here, and we're just going to make a delegation. So if anyone points to DC1 or 2 for child.contoso.com, it's just going to refer it back to this machine. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go back. So that's right. So that's what we should see. If we go here to forwarders, who do we forward to? Right. So if we don't know the answer, we send them to here or here. If we send it here and it's Contoso, it'll give you an answer. If it doesn't, it will go out, find an answer for you, come back, and bring it back to this machine. So we've just added child to the chain. If I point to myself and it's child, I'll be able to answer. If I don't, my server will send it to here. If this doesn't know, it'll send it to here. So it's kind of like a chain of DNS servers, chain of namespaces. I'm just going to show you the DNS client while I'm here. It's pointing to myself as primary. If I don't know the answer, send it here. Ultimately, if we had a second DC, I'd put that in its place. But we don't. We don't have a second DC for the child domain. So let's go to DC 1. Go to DNS. I want to show you something on the map. If you look at the map, I have 3 different subnets that have been, it's already been subnetted. But I don't want to create a reverse for this side, for the center, and for this side. So I'm going to create one reverse that handles the whole classful network. So on DC1, I'm going to go to reverse, create a new zone. It's going to be primary. It's going to be stored in an Active Directory. But instead of creating one and then create another one on the child, then another one on the, I'm going to create one zone that no matter what domain you're part of, as long as you're DC in this forest, not in this domain, I'm going to send you a copy of this file. So they're all going to have access to this one reverse zone. 172.16. Not any subnet, back to the classful address. So whether you're on east, west, or the WAN, this will be your reverse. One reverse for the entire network.
What's the zone name
172.16.
and the name?
You're in the wrong one. Make sure you right click and say new reverse, not forward. Then make sure it goes to all the DNS servers in the forest, and the network is 172.16. No other changes. So eventually this will pop up on the child DC. So now we are ready to promote the next DC. DC6. One to me 2.0.5. Who should I send it to name resolution? This is going to be a new tree domain. I'm going to send it up to the root. Because this is going to be how it looks. My root of my forest is contoso.com. I'm going to have a new child domain. Child.contoso.com. I'm going to have another child domain called adatum.com. It's still a child domain, but it's a different tree. So I still point it up to the root. This and this will automatically have a relationship. This is domain A. If domain A trusts domain B, and domain A trusts domain C, and C trusts A, and A trusts B, so C will trust B. It's called a two-way transitive trust. What does transitive mean? Travels. So that trust will travel. So if A trusts B and B trusts A, and A trusts C, so then B will trust C as well. So a user from this domain will be able to sign into a computer in this domain. So I'm going to point to my 2 DNS servers in my root domain. It's DC6. And install Active Directory. Install Active Directory domain services. Make a reboot after it's promoted. Guys, another thing I want to show you. I'm going to go to my child DC. You don't have to do this. You can just watch. If I go to Active Directory users and computers, I won't have an enterprise admin or a schema admin. I'm going to go to DNS. Look, it already copied that from the parent DC. If I go to properties, I can see that this is going to get replicated to all DNS servers in the forest, regardless of the domain. This girl has this lock screen on.
No, I mean, I'm doing remote.
Oh. What? This girl has some trust issues. It locks like instantly. Okay, so that's why you should have mentioned it. I keep coming in and logging you out. So we're going to create a new domain, but the domain name, Adatum, doesn't include Contoso. So this is going to be a tree domain. So the forest is contoso.com, but the domain is adatum.com. Guys, this is Microsoft's other fake domain. Now, whose credentials do I need to supply? Local admin, domain admin, or enterprise admin?
Enterprise.
Enterprise, because I'm creating a new domain. This is going to be on the same site as DC 1, 2, and 5. So I don't need a global catalog server. But before we click install, we need to manually create that delegation. Adrian, do you need me to come back there?
No, not yet. No, I'm sorry. Now, that.
Guys, while I'm waiting for this, I'm going to go over to DC1. Going to DNS. Now look, this delegation we created was for child.contoso.com. So it's going to send that back down. But if we create a datum here, it's going to say a datum.com.contoso.com. That's not what we want. So what we're going to do is do something called, normally, if you don't know the name, go to the forwarder. Send it to the forwarder. But now, we're going to do a conditional forwarder. So I'm going to new conditional forwarder. For datum.com, send it to 172.16.0. What is it, 5? Yeah. And store it in Active Directory. Guys, it's not going to resolve because it's not set up yet. No big deal. So if we have a client pointing to Contoso and it wants to resolve www.adatum.com to an IP address, what's it going to do? It's going to send it directly to this machine because it's going to have this conditional forwarder. Normally, if it was google.com, I'll send it out. But for datum, I'm going to send it to this machine. So what will happen here? If a client was pointing to this DC, if it doesn't know the answer, who does it send it to? Here. And if it's Google, it'll send it out. Contoso.com. But now look what I did here in this screen. So if a client wants to resolve www.adatum.com, where's this machine going to send it? No, because I'm going to replicate this. I'm going to send this record to all VCs in the forest. So this machine will have a conditional forwarder as well, saying for datum, just send it directly here. Click OK. Conditional forwarder, it's going to be replicated to all DCs in the forest. So pretty soon the child will get that. Now we are ready to go back to DC6. No global catalog. We don't want it to create the delegation because the forwarder is in place. It looks like there's something wrong here, but that's exactly how we want it to be. We don't want it to create a datum on the DC1 or 2. Just wanted to make sure I was recording. Guys, just click install. It's going to do its thing. When you're done, shut down your real machines. You're free to go. I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to upload it.